Alright guys, so today I have a different kind of video for you. Today I'm going to recommend you some books, pieces of literature that I have digested in recent weeks, months, years that have passed. And with that being said, let's get started. I hope you guys enjoy this list. So first up on the list is Black Shirts and Reds by Michael Parenti. Parenti is one of my favorite authors. He has written a great deal of literature on topics of history, politics, and economics from a Marxist perspective. He has done great works talking about imperialism at a time when no one else did. But yeah, this is the book that actually radicalized me. This is the book that really got me to take a hard left turn. It's a very beloved book of mine. In Black Shirts and Reds, Parenti talks about the rarely discussed fact that liberal capitalist governments were complicit in the rise of Nazi Germany and fascist Italy. Many of the other topics that are discussed in the book range from anti-communism being imposed upon the psyche of the American people, to the truth about the Soviet Union and really existing socialism, to some of his criticisms that he outlines about really existing socialism, and finally, near the end of the book, he talks about the fall of the USSR in the Eastern Bloc, and how the restoration of capitalism made conditions for the Soviet people objectively worse, not better. Anyways, it's a fantastic read. It's a personal favorite of mine. If you haven't read Black Shirts and Reds, highly recommend it. This is some good shit. Next up is The Spirit Level by Wilkinson and Pickett. This book, along with the next one that I'm about to recommend, completely blows out the notions of social Darwinism as well as the general survival of the fittest paradigms and general assumptions made against equality and democracy by liberal ideology. The Spirit Level presents a huge list of statistics, plotting countries on graphs with respect to their income inequality, and demonstrating a direct correlation between the degree of inequality in a country and the degree of public health issues across the board. Be it crime, violence, stroke, heart disease, deprivation, suicidality, drug abuse, depression, mental illness, you name it. Wherever there is an increase in the degree of income inequality, there is a general linear increase in the rates of deprivation and public health crises that you see within society. And this book delves deep into the topic. I highly recommend it. It's good stuff. And as I alluded to with that last one, now we have mutual aid. Petr Kropotkin is one of my favorite authors. He's an anarcho-communist and a biologist who wrote this book, and he talks a great deal about the symbiotic relationships that occur within nature, and he dunks on the concept of social Darwinism, and basically he showcases in this book how animals don't just work together within species, they work together between species as well. You've got hippos that will try to defend a dying animal or a dying mammal that's being attacked by an alligator. You will have alligators that will open their mouths so that birds can fly into them and pick the parasites out from between their teeth. You've got lions and tigers that have been observed adopting herbivores and animals that would usually be their prey. The capacity for empathy and compassion within the animal kingdom is great, and it's not an evolutionary weakness. It is in fact a strength, and it actually has been the key to human survival up to this point that we call modern civilization. So yeah, read this forever ago. Mutual Aid, check it out. Next up is The Confessions of an Economic Hitman, or the updated version of the book that includes news stories, The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins. This book is essentially about Perkins' career as a corporate spy. His job was to visit third world countries and try to corrupt the leadership, offering them very tasty predatory loans under the guise of economic development and aid. Really, these loans were just a trap to try and ensnare these countries in more debt that they can possibly hope to pay off. That is to say, with the direct intention to carve up their domestic markets, ruthlessly exploit their people for cheap labor, and privatize their native resources, utilities, and human services, and build military bases on their soil. However, if the leadership rejected these loans, rejected these opportunities for economic development and aid, The CIA would infiltrate the ranks of the country and try to get the government overthrown via coups, assassinations, and/or color revolutions. And if that didn't work, then the US State Department would issue propaganda through the media apparatuses such as CNN and Fox News and so on to try and disseminate false information about that country, or just upplaying the issues that that country may or may not have, in an attempt to manufacture consent for military intervention. Ooh, this country's ruled by an evil dictator. We need to do regime change in this country so that we can get them to embrace economic freedom. However, if that didn't work, if we weren't able to sell the general public on a war, as the US government is finding more and more difficult nowadays, after everyone found out that we basically lied our way into the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, most people are now very weary of war nowadays. So, as a final step, usually they'll just sanction the country. And this is pretty much how the United States and the Imperial Bloc does regime change. But yeah, this book is all about John Perkins' work as a private consultant. He tells you about his stories and the work that he's done in Southeast Asia and Latin America and the likes. And he talks all about how the IMF and World Bank basically try to manipulate these countries into signing off on these loans so that they could exploit them for their labor markets and natural resources. Okay, so next up we have Hitler's American Friends. Hitler's American Friends are about the Nazis' deep business ties with US corporations and banks that were doing dealings with Adolf Hitler, not just before the war, but during the war as well. Hitler's American Friends talks about the Nazi dealings with Ford, Coke, Standard Oil, and a litany of other companies that found excellent opportunities to make some fast cash. Next up, we have The Red Flag, A History of Communism by David Priestland. This book is a personal favorite of mine because if you're new to communism and you want to get a pretty objective presentation and analysis of the history of the movement and events that have taken place over the last 200 years, I highly recommend this book because he talks about the French Revolution, the utopian socialists, the history with Marx and Engels and the labor movement in Britain and Germany and France in the 1800s. He talks about the October Revolution, the revolution in China and Cuba. He covers the Khmer Rouge. He even talks about Nicaragua a little bit in this book. It's a really good book. It's got pictures. I would take some of the stuff he says with a bit of grain of salt because Priestland is a liberal historian, so just keep that in mind. But nonetheless, when it comes to liberal historians, it doesn't get much better than this. Next up is The Assassination of Julius Caesar. Now, I do not actually have a copy of this book on me because my mother accidentally donated it to Goodwill. And with that being said, The Assassination of Julius Caesar is another one of my favorite books by Michael Parenti because it covers the history of ancient Rome from 260 BC to 65 BC, but he does it from the analysis of class. He provides analysis of ancient Rome from the lens of a historical materialist and a Marxian perspective. He talks about the events that transpired under Julius Caesar, how he was really a populist leader in the face of an extremely corrupt oligarchy and aristocracy. It's a really good book. I wish I had a copy of it in my hands, but what you gonna do? Okay, next up is Spy the Lie. CIA Officers Teach You How to Detect Deception, written by Philip Houston, Michael Floyd, and Susan Carcenero. Spy the Lie. Not much to say besides that. In Spy the Lie, former glow-in-the-dark Negroes straight up from the farm tell you all about the CIA's tactics of infiltration, manipulation, and sabotage. This book will give you lessons in lie detection and provide a template for how you can do effective counterintelligence work to keep your activities and organizing glow-free. And last but not least, we have Blood Lies. Tragically, I do not have my copy on me for this video because I left my copy at my sister's place last time I paid her a visit. But anyways, Grover Furr is an English teacher and an old comrade who has dedicated the latter half of his life studying the Soviet archives and unveiling the truth behind Stalin's regime. He has written countless articles on the topic of his website and continues to write response books to this day. In Blood Lies, Grover Fur completely dismantles Snyder's anti-communist propaganda piece, going footnote by footnote, investigating, disproving, discrediting, and refuting Snyder's work, as well as providing counter footnotes and counter evidence and explanations for the events that really transpired in the Soviet Union during the 1930s. Aside from Black Shirts and Reds, I recommend this book as well for the simple fact that it goes point by point, refuting a great deal of the anti-communist propaganda surrounding the Stalin era of the 1930s, and it will steel you with the facts to refute a lot of the bullshit. Anyways, that was the last book I had to recommend. That's all I have to say for now, guys. I hope that you guys check these books out. They're really good. I wouldn't be recommending them to you if they weren't any good. And with that being said, I will see you for the live stream tomorrow. Peace.